Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. We continue with the sessions at the GLOBSEC 2021 Bratislava Forum. And for this next session, we're going to be discussing the EU economic reboot on track towards resilient economies. Please keep using the GLOBSEC app with the questions. We're here ready to receive them and hopefully to answer all of them, of course, during the session. We're going to also get some questions from you here in the audience, those who are physically with us in the room. And I have to remind you that this session is, of course, streamed online and it will be broadcast. So if you are in the room, try to check if there are cameras around you so that the stream goes well and we can be joined by as many people as possible. The session will last 1 hour. We will get questions towards the end of it. And without further ado, the policy response to the pandemic has been hotly debated across all the European Union and in the European capitals since spring last year. A shared solution materialized into a rescue package 5 times larger than the Marshall Plan, with the aim of providing relief and increasing EU economy's resilience. How will it work? How are we going to get there? And how we are going to jumpstart the economies of the EU member states and consequently the economy of the bloc. This is what we're going to discuss with our speakers today. I'm very pleased to be joined here on stage by Karel Havlíček, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Industry and Trade, Minister of Transport, Czech Republic.
Hello.
Eduard Heger, Prime Minister of the Slovak Republic. And Sebastian Kurz, Chancellor of the Republic of Austria. Thank you so much for being here. It's a great pleasure to have you all here for this session as we are discussing, of course, some of the most important economic issues when we're looking at the future of the European Union and of the member states. And let me start with asking you on the Recovery and Resilience Facility. Of course, there's been so much debate over it. And do you think, Chancellor, let's start with you, do you think it will be enough to jumpstart this recovery and the economies?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to the GLOBSEC conference. And to answer your question, yes, I think that it will be enough. And I would also say it has to be enough. You know that Austria and some other countries in the European Union, the so-called frugal countries, were quite skeptical about the recovery fund at the beginning. We agreed in the end because we think that the package is good. We think that the decision was good, and we think that it was necessary to invest a lot of money to kickstart the economy. But we would have not agreed to a permanent debt union, and we do not want to repeat it several times. We think that it was a tool necessary at this time, but nothing we should repeat quite often. And so I think it is not only enough, it has to be enough. And I think it would also be good to remember ourselves why we are talking about the need to kickstart our economy. The reason for the economic or for the negative development of our economies we had is the pandemic. And most people here are still wearing masks. We still have some rules, necessary rules at the moment. But in Austria, for example, we have more than 50% of our people vaccinated so far. At the beginning of summer, we will have more than 50% vaccinated in all EU member states. By the end of summer, we will have 2/3 or 70 or 75% vaccinated in most European member states. So I think there's a good chance that we win against the pandemic and that we can go back to a normal situation. And this is the best support for our economy. And so my answer would be yes, I think it is more than enough. It's okay that we did it, but it is more than enough. And now we should not discuss if we need more. We should focus more on the debate where to invest, because I think it's not only important how much we invest, it's even more important where we invested.
Now, you just mentioned some of that skepticism that the frugal countries had in the beginning with the conversations and some really heated debates. Would you say that now there is less skepticism?
Yes, there is less skepticism because we agreed on numbers, we agreed on a wider package, including rule of law and other criteria. We agreed that there should be a main focus on investment in digitalization and also in green economy, which makes our economies more resilient and also more powerful. And last but not least, we also agreed that it is a single tool and that it is not a permanent debt union, which was for us the most important point.
Thank you so much. Prime Minister Hager, what's your take on that? Would that be enough? And what are some of the cornerstones of national strategies in your case?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I think it's important to look at the time when it was agreed. It wasn't easy that this proposal was born because of the discussion we had, and there was a lot of question marks on the risks of this whole action. But yes, we are here. It's been decided. It's been agreed. That's important. But I think we have to think of a strong element of this whole package. And the element is the focus on reforms. Because that was the condition of the responsible countries, as I would say, where said, okay, if we want to invest a lot of money out of the government pockets and increase the debt, we have to have the investments into or linked with the reforms. So, because we know the reforms are the ones that bring the healthy public finances, so that must be going hand in hand in order to prevent a further growth of the debt, rather having instruments where the debt could later on be decreased by helping the economies to grow. So, and therefore the pension reform, tax reform, education reforms, and it depends from country to country, but the element of reforms must be discussed, I think, every time we speak about this package of the money, because if we don't conduct the reforms, we invest the money, but it won't have such impact as it should be. And as I said, the milestones in the recovery plans are based on the fact that in the first couple of years should be developed or conducted the reforms. And we know that the investments take a longer time. When we speak on the investments, I fully agree. It's very important to speak where to invest. This is one-time great activity, first time in the history of EU where we take such a debt, where we take actually debt together in this way. So we have to be very wise, but it's only a kind of the beginning, because we know also from the part of Slovakia that our recovery plan doesn't include everything. And we have to do a lot of changes in the regulations and allow the business environment to grow. And what's important, what happened also during this year, there was and last year, there was a massive help of the economies. That's not really part of the recovery plan, where we invested a lot of money and increased the debt of our countries to help the environment, business environment, to survive. And that was very important. So this goes hand in hand, and we have to see it as the whole package.
Thank you. Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. It's a very pleasure for me to meet with you. It's an honor for me. And congratulations to the football team of Austria and Slovakia and Czech Republic, because all of these teams, they won, as you know. But from the point of view of recovery and resilience facility. So from the point of view of the Czech Republic, it will not be the only instrument, but it could be the key instrument. Definitely, what are the priorities or let's say the main vehicles in the Czech Republic? The first, this is industry efficiency. We are a medium-sized country, and it's not about amount, it's not about revenues, about turnover, because I came from business, from small and medium-sized business. I know that medium-sized business, it's based on efficiency, not on the turnover, on the revenues. And to achieve the efficiency, that means that we have to invest into the innovation, into the research, into the development, into the science. And you can expect in a few years, we can expect that we will be aided value-oriented economy. This is the first SMEs activity as a small and medium enterprises. We are the SMEs country, and as I know, your countries, they are also based on the small and medium enterprises, and 99% of all the companies, they are active as a small and medium companies. It's extremely important from the point of view of regional activities, services, and let's say the niche marketing is a very flexible environment which we have to prepare for small companies. Startup and spin-offs for creativity. We need young people that are starting their business. We need for new technologies. We need for, let's say, the new companies. They are starting the business at the regional levels. And of course, we need unbureaucratic public sectors. And it's important to say that even before the crisis in Czech Republic, we defined the new priorities. We completely changed the priorities at the level of Czech Republic, and we start to invest into the research development, and we introduced the so-called innovation strategy, which is called the Czech Republic Country for the Future. And that's from our point of view the key step, because it includes the new system of financing and evaluation of the research and development, new system of the digitization of the Czech Republic. We are creating the environment for startups and spin-offs, starting to support really smart investments and so on. And also, we are promoting the new brand of the Czech Republic. No more land of stories, but as a country for the future, we would like to present the Czech Republic and promote the Czech Republic no more as a country of the cheap beer, as a beautiful countryside and the Charles Bridge, but as a country of the knowledge, innovation, science, and university. And for recovery and resilience plan is based on this innovation strategy. And the question, if it's enough, from our point of view, the amount, it's enough.
So there's also a moment to change and innovate and to come up with the new ideas now after this year, of course. Now, all the three countries have submitted their plans, and all of them are based on the EU guidance, of course, when it comes to green ambitions, when it comes to digitalization. But at the same time, when it comes to the EU funds, they're, of course, tied to the issue of conditionality and some structural reforms. For many, many people in Europe, once you hear structural reforms, you think of some very strict control at the same time. That's, of course, some memories that we've had from the financial crisis. Now, where is this balance in terms of how to make sure that the funds are, of course, used with the respect to the EU guidance, with the national strategies, respecting the needs of every EU member, but also not to overdo this control over structural reforms, not to bring back something that would even slightly remind anybody of the Troika strategy?
Well, if you allow me to start, I would say a bit more control would not be wrong. I don't think that we should fear too much control. And I think the Troika was not only negative at all, because without structural reforms, all this new money will not fly. So I think, and this was also one of the points we criticized the frugal countries, was that we discussed by far too long about the numbers and how much to invest, and we discussed too little how to invest, where to invest, and how to control it. So from our point of view, control is not bad. It's necessary if you invest 700 billion euros in a very short period of time. I think it's important to decide where and to control that. I think the goal from the European Union that at least 1/3 should be invested in green transition and at least 20% in innovation and digitalization is not that high. For example, in Austria, if you combine these two areas, we have more than 90% or about 90% invested in green transition and in digitalization. So it is doable. And I think that on the long run, the countries will profit if they do it. And last point, because the Prime Minister mentioned it, I think structural reforms are the basis. If you look at the unemployment rate, for example, in the different member states, it's extremely low in Czech Republic, and it's much higher in countries like Portugal, Spain, and others. So I think if we don't focus on these structural problems as well, we will lose competitiveness within the EU, and competitiveness is the basis for economic recovery and positive development of the European Union.
And for the recovery, and then afterwards for the growth stage for the economy.
Definitely.
Prime Minister, what's your take on the issue of conditionality and structural reforms and control over those?
Yeah, of course, it's very needed, and that's why the whole plan was called its plan. It's not a strategy. Actually, all the countries had to develop a very detailed plan. We never experienced this with the structural funds. It was a new exercise for all the countries, and I think it was a very good exercise, even though we didn't have that much time. But I think the countries knew their own problems, and they saw what came with the pandemic. But if you lay down a plan and you know what you want to do the next 6 years, 5-6 years, where you want to invest, because that's what you needed to submit by the end of April. So, and the European Commission said very clearly, you need to have milestones, and we'll see whether you meet the milestones, and based on meeting the milestones, we will release the money. Beautiful. That's a motivation. It has, it's the journey. So I think for countries who didn't have this experience, it was a great exercise for them to prepare. And therefore, I fully agree, the control is needed, because otherwise the money will be just spent, and that would be a disaster. Such a money you don't want to just spend, you want to invest them, because the debt grew in the EU by average up to 100% of GDP, and that's not a low number. So, and if we don't want to be a continent where we don't, where we have to, I think we have to be responsible toward the debt always, because we have different economies, etc. So that therefore you need to have very wise investments. And I know that the Commission did a very good job on communicating with all the countries about explaining where the investment go, whether these investments are really the good made, and therefore I have a strong hope that this is going to bring good results if it's going to conduct it, and by having the milestones there in the plan and the condition of releasing the money only by achieving the milestones, I think it's going to be a successful exercise, and it's going to move Europe stronger. And that's what we need. This continent needs to be a very strong continent. It needs to be competitive with the world. And we know that Europe is a rather difficult continent because there's so many countries, so many strong countries, that getting an agreement on so many countries is not always easy. I, as a Prime Minister of 4 coalition, know what I speak about. So, so that's why, but I'm glad it worked well so far.
Yeah, thank you. Karol Havlicek, what's your take on that when it comes to the issue of conditionality and the funds being tied up to structural reforms?
Well, the recovery and resilience plan is covering in the Czech Republic many of the strategies, as I mentioned, innovation strategy, investment plan, let's say transport strategy, and so on. And the Czech government is a specific government. We came, many of the members of the government came from business. And let's say we are a little bit results-oriented government, and business is about management, so vision, mission, long-term goals and short-term goals and so on. And it's about controlling, about risk management. And we would like to implement the controlling into this mechanism, into these activities, especially at the innovation level, especially at the research and development level. As you remember, I presented or I introduced that we completely changed the priorities of the Czech Republic, for example, in a field, in an area of research and development. It's not easy to control the results in a science, let's say it's the universities' activities and so on. But it's extremely important, for example, now long-term objective in this field is to achieve in 2025 2.5% so-called GERT indicator. That's a total expense to R&D to GDP. 2020, the level it's 2%. And we achieved it in 2020. The next goal is 2025, 2.5%, and 2030 to achieve the 3%. As a gut indicator, 3% is extremely high. That means that then we have a chance to be in the top 5, top 7 most innovative countries in Europe. And that's our strategy. That's mean to manage, vision, mission, but on the other hand, to control and also to balance it at the level of risk management, because it's lots of money.
We have received a few questions, and I would like to bring the first of those questions to our speakers. The question is coming from Heidi Maurer, if we can see it now on screen. What are visions of our speakers on how political solidarity across European societies will accompany the economic reforms that are already highlighted? Prime Minister?
Well, what is the vision on the political solidarity across Europe? I think, well, of course, this is always important to have in mind, and we discussed this on the summits as well. We cannot forget about the fact that the European Union is one of the best places to live in the world, and I think it's important for us as politicians to be sensitive on that in the political debate or in the social debate on the national levels, because of course even now after the pandemic we feel that the people are tired out of what they've been locked down. They've been going through a crisis. We had to help as the governments, but we cannot forget in the general debate that there are other places in the world where we have to help. And I think the solidarity in general, it's a word that we need to explain much more in general, even in the local politics. What I see in the past or over the past months or years, and I think it came with when we heard first time United States first, is this, I would say, selfishness. And I think it's very, very dangerous for the developed world to become selfish, because we want to allow also other countries to have a good life in the world. And there is other topics in the foreign policy where we speak of other countries that will become part of EU, etc., etc. So yes, solidarity is definitely an important part of our politics.
I totally share the vision of solidarity in the European Union, and I think all member states can agree on that. I think where we should become better is also to have the vision of being successful, because what we sometimes forget within the EU is that we compete with other parts of the world, with China, with the US, and many other countries. And if you look at the economic growth rates, we have to avoid that we become a museum with a high standard of living. And I think we always have to repeat and remind ourselves that the basis for solidarity, the basis for public investments, the basis for higher social standards is competitiveness and economic growth. And if we look, for example, at UK, of course, they had a very negative development last year, but this year they will have an economic growth rate of 7%, for example. If you look at China at the moment, there's enormous economic growth. So I think what we should focus on is solidarity, definitely, but we always have to remind ourselves that solidarity is possible if we are all 27 member states on their own and all united, successful.
But how to find that balance, how to be successful and as much as possible competitive when it comes to the global stage, but also not scale back that much on solidarity when it comes to the EU bloc?
Well, I think that it is even easier to show solidarity if we are all together successful. I think it's a question of focus and what we really want. And if you look at our debates, for example, in the European Council of the Prime Minister level, there are many debates about the green transformation, which is important. There are many debates about social standards, which is important. There are many debates about foreign affairs, which is important as well. But I think a strong focus on competitiveness would also be important. And I think we have it more in the political debate in the Eastern European countries, and we have it a bit less in the Western European countries and in some probably Central European countries like Austria. So I think more focus on these issues is good for all of us.
Thank you. Deputy Prime Minister.
It works together. You can do a great business and you can also support the social responsibility. Well, it's the same. So you have to balance it just from the point of view of the sustainable environment, from the point of view, I don't know, green environment or smart, intelligent growth and so on. And you have to support, let's say, circular economy. You have to support the process of decarbonization. At the same time, you can implement the smart solutions, let's say the smart solution in the industrial segment, in agriculture, smart solutions, I don't know, in the energy sector, of course. And from my point of view, it's really great potential in the cooperation between the member states. But we have to involve also all of the involved persons. Well, there's the non-profit institutions, universities, let's say the platforms, Chamber of Commerce, confederations, trade unions, and so on. Good.
I have another question from the audience, from Jamie Prentice. At least 37% of total spending must be allocated towards the green transition. Jamie is asking, should this figure be higher than that? And I'm going to add to that, to Jamie's question. With such a strict guidance, how to make sure that the whole process doesn't become just a box-ticking exercise in some cases about making sure that it's enough when it comes to the green transition?
Well, actually I will add it because it's not just green transition. It became over the time a climate change and do no significant harm came to it, etc. So I must say for a country like Slovakia, it wasn't an easy exercise. But on the other hand, in general, on the EU level, the investments go this direction anyway. So it's not like that we pushing something that we are trying to invent. And I don't think it's a ticking box. So there's a lot of talk on Fit for 55, etc. So it goes hand in hand in this, and that's why it was invented, this figure. It's just important, again, on what do we invest into within this framework. And we really have to encourage also the companies to bring ideas, bring projects where they bring the highest added value. In some countries, it is well developed, so it's going to be easy to spend this percentage, and actually some of them will have even higher. In a country like Slovakia, where in certain parts, I said, of Slovakia, we still kind of got stuck in time and we weren't able to invest enough into getting out of 20th century into the 21st. We had to really rethink what do we do and where do we spend it. But we went the direction toward the emissions decrease, and we also went into schemes for houses, where we know that a lot of families has bad condition houses with bad energy consumptions. So that's where we put a lot of this money into these schemes because it decreases the emissions. It also helps the energy usage. So yeah, I think I don't see this as a ticking box.
I'm going to bring here few months ago, the European Parliament had a survey showing Europeans want the EU to spend and invest more in health. Of course, this is something we all understand, having been through the pandemic. When asked this question, given the current context, on which of the following would you like the EU money to be spent? There are very interesting results. When it comes to Austria, most of the people said climate change and environmental protection. When it comes to the Czech Republic, economic recovery and new opportunities on businesses. When it comes to Slovakia, employment and social affairs. This is the results of the survey from just a few months ago. When it comes to Austria, the people replied that they would like the money to be spent on climate change, environmental protection, and this is what is reflected in the plan that you have submitted.
Well, I didn't know that, but sounds good because it's what we do. So I'm happy if people are happy. We invest more than 40% of it in green transformation and about a bit more than 40% in digitalization. So that sounds quite okay. But I think for many people, this whole thing is still quite abstract. And so probably I'm not sure if there's really such a big gap between the member states, but I don't know the figures.
Thank you. Would you comment on the results from your country?
Yes, so the Czech Republic Recovery and Resilience Plan presents 40% of the, let's say, the green transition projects. It's a little bit more than it's necessary. And as you know, in the Czech Republic, it's quite, let's say, the specific economic environment, economic structure, because especially from the point of view of the energy sector, 60% of the central heating systems are based on coal. 45% of the electricity is based on the coal. That means that we have now to transfer all of these sources into the low emission sources. It's extremely difficult way. We are starting now, and of course the future is in renewables, but also nuclear energy, and at the same time we need the support from the European Union of the gas well in the next maybe let's say 10, 15 years. The same is it in the industrial segment. Well, so we are one of the most industrialized country in Europe, in the top 3. And that means that we have to completely change the industrial segment and industrial infrastructure to the low emission technologies. Well, and the same is it in a transport. Well, the 20% of the emission in Czech Republic are based on a segment of transport. So there are the huge challenges, and we are, let's say, conservative. That's right, but on the other hand, the goals, well, they are, I think, extremely ambitious, and that's the reason that 40% it's the Czech number of the resilience plan from the point of view of the climate changes.
Premised.
It was interesting to hear for Slovakia. A couple of things I need to share here. We know that the recovery plan cannot be used for recurring expenses. That's not allowed. It's only for the investments. But even in this era, we were going toward the results of the survey, even not knowing that it will be this result. But that's why we have investments into hospitals, into the healthcare, because we know that there is a great gap, and I think this is one of the reasons why the survey came as it came. We also have a lot of investments into the education, into the kindergarten, broader infrastructure, and again, it's toward the people, toward their care, and also digitalization of the schools, etc. But on the other hand, we're thinking, because this is kind of for the presence, for the better well-being, or for the quality of life. On the other hand, we had a second pillar that was thinking about the future, investments for the future. Part of it is the education, but that's a long term, but also a big amount of the money goes toward innovation. Reform plus really over 600 million euros goes toward innovations, because this is where we see the future. We are a very industrial country, automotive as we know, and we want to develop and build on this backbone of our economy into investments into innovations. And as I see the countries around as well, so it's a good foundation for future cooperation, which I very much look forward, and these are our great neighbors and friends as well. So that's why even despite of this survey, we had to invest into the future, which is very important for Slovakia.
I've got another survey for you.
All right.
According to the recent Eurobarometer results, 43% of Europeans are satisfied with measures taken so far by national governments to fight the pandemic. 43%, that sounds good. Could it be better? Of course it could be. My question is how to make sure that these funds, and how to use those funds to increase that confidence and increase the trust towards national governments from the citizens. Because of course we know that this pandemic has been much more than the healthcare crisis that was a massive economic and social crisis, with so many people losing their jobs and their lives changing. How to use that investment and this money now to increase this confidence, to help people, and maybe what I mean, going a bit more social and human oriented?
Well, I think that we are in a quite good starting position now, because the pandemic was difficult for all of us, and it took by far too long. But now with the vaccination campaign going quite well, I think life is already much better for all of us at the moment. Imagine how the situation would be without the vaccination. Think back how the situation was a few months ago. It was impossible to meet. We had video conferences all day. Many people lost their jobs. So we are already in a much better situation now. And I think if we keep on vaccinating, we will be able to overcome this whole story. Of course, the virus will not be gone. Of course, there will be another wave. But as long as we are able to protect, especially older people, I think we are in a much better situation. And I can only speak for our country. But of course, the pandemic hit us hard. Of course, it was terrible to see how many people lost their jobs. We have about 15% of our GDP dependent from tourism. This was terrible for many regions of Austria. And now even these sectors are coming back. Tourism is coming back. People get back into their jobs. So I think that we will have a very positive development in the next months and years. And the whole recovery fund is still in the planning status. So spending this money will help even more.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
Well, first of all, we have to admit that the COVID-19 found us unprepared. We didn't expect something like this happen, and when we saw it in China, we still didn't believe that it's going to come in Europe, and it's going to come in such a strong wave. So that's first thing. On the other hand, I think everybody was trying to be flexible as much as possible. We haven't finished yet with the pandemic, but we learned a lot, and of course it could be done better. But on the other hand, I think we introduced a lot of instruments, for example, the Green Pass now, and a lot of procedures, a lot of protocols been developed on how to move around, wearing masks, how many people can enter, etc. This is already prepared, and if something similar comes, we already know how to act much faster, and we can protect the people much better. We can prevent to go into such a peak as it was. So we learn from our own mistakes. We'll learn from each other. I think that's very important. 43%. Is it good? Is it bad? Well, that's what it is. It should be better next time.
It's about that glass, which is half full.
Yes, exactly. So the important thing is that we don't stop. We didn't, as I said, we're not finished. We're still thinking on how to live with the COVID for the upcoming period. Vaccination is very important. We know that we'll have to vaccinate the whole world if we really want to get rid of COVID. But definitely the level that we are, that we will be much better for the quality of life in Europe. So definitely move forward and not give up and not relax.
Thank you. Karol Havlicek, what's your take on that? And just as before you start, get ready with the questions, because we're going to go into the questions from the audience, and I would like you afterwards to raise your hands so that I can see them. Please.
Well, it was extremely difficult period, but now we have to look into the future, because everybody's expecting act from us, and we have to outline the future, not only at the economic level, but at the society level. I don't want to call it that we are, let's say, restarting only the economy. We are restarting the society. And resilience and recovery plan, from our point of view, it's not a typical economic plan. It is a plan as an infrastructural plan, which is based on economic activities, research activities, but also the health and resilience activities. And that's the reason that we are investing in, from this point of view, 6% to the strengthening the resilience in health care systems, and 3% to the research activities based on a health area. So it's not only about the economic restart.
Thank you. We're gonna go into the questions from the audience. I'm gonna just ask you to keep them rather brief, because you cannot hold the microphone due to, of course, the COVID measures. We have a question there. Could we please go for the, yes, could you stand up? And please keep it rather brief. There we go.
I'm Ayman Hanna, visiting professor at the College of Europe. My question is about conditionalities. Are they only about structural reforms, or there should be, because the EU is a normative force also in the world, conditionalities related to rule of law when it comes to independent judiciary, free press, non-discrimination, LGBT rights, etc. What's your take on this? Thank you.
Well, I share that it was a big debate, and also one of the points we as frugal countries brought into debate, that rule of law has to be a basis if one member of the European Union wants to get a lot of money from other member states, which have to pay for that. And of course, as always in the EU, we had to find a compromise, so a bit more would have been good, but at least we agreed to something on rule of law. Yeah.
On behalf of the action and the decision process, I think it was important that this was recovery and resilience plan in order to help the economies, the governments. That's why the structural reforms are very important, and it goes from country to country which needed what reform more. So therefore, I don't really see a reason for having such a condition in the conditions. On the other hand, we are a European Union, as I said, one of the best places to live. It's a democratic environment, and for us, rule of law is importance number one, because any democracy cannot grow in other environment other than in a state of where the rule of law is fully active. So therefore, I think this is a ground field, and if we see that there are some other views on it, it's definitely good to have a debate on it and try to understand what's behind it. But we have to also understand that European Union is a union of autonomic countries with their sovereignty. Therefore, I am very much a great fan of communication, of a discussion, because that's what friends do, and we shouldn't be afraid of talking also about difficult topics. But it always starts with listening, and then it goes further on. But for Slovakia, as you see, the current situation, rule of law, is really something that we want to build Slovakia into. We want to make Slovakia a solid democratic country with strong roots of rule of law.
So we have an opportunity, a great opportunity, to manage the plan as a European plan, not only as a plan of the particular countries. Well, and that's the power of this initiative of this plan. And it's like in a business, in a balance sheet, as you know. On the left side there are the assets, on the right side there are the equity and liabilities. Assets, that's right. So infrastructure and digitization, physical infrastructure, and I don't know, fixed assets. On the right side, equity, social responsibility. Well, and of course, the debts we have to pay to the let's say suppliers. And this, from this point of view, they are the debts. They are closely connected. Well, because it's closely connected to the national financial budgets. So, and all of this must be balanced. And that's the way how to.
Tell me a little bit about your plans to address these issues.
Thank you for the question. Prime Minister, do you want to start?
Well, yes, the question of the winners and losers, yeah. This whole pandemic was definitely very asymmetric in this, and Slovakia is a country of industry. It helped us a lot to really not have such bad numbers. When at the beginning we expected that we're going to have a decrease in GDP almost 10%, and it ended up not even 5%. It was also that we invested on the government help toward the employment. This very famous Kurzarbeit. Everybody knows it by now in Slovakia. It'll help very much to protect the people with their jobs, etc. So therefore, I think the countries responded depending as they need it in their recovery plans, and I think it's good. But as I mentioned in the beginning, it's not only about the recovery plan, it was also about what we did during the pandemic, how we were helping to maximum possible and still protecting the...
Well, in the Czech Republic, it's extremely low, I know. Well, but definitely in all of the Central European countries, the rate of unemployment is relatively low. And the losers, of course, the retailers, small services. Well, that's the reason that we supported these segments extremely a lot of sources, 15 billion euros. We by 15 billion euros, we supported the segments of the small and medium enterprises, especially in a business field like services, restaurants, and small retailers. But we have to finish this support now and to start a new type of support based on investment support, based on innovation support, based on, let's say, the programs as guarantees, the loans and banking loans guarantees, and to stop now the special program based on a Kurzarbeit and so on, because we have to balance and manage also the labor market well.
Thank you so much. Thanks to all of the speakers for this session. Thanks for everybody participating here. I wish we had more time for your questions and for questions from the audience, from those participating online. It's always like that. Next time, hopefully, we're going to have more time and we're going to have more questions and more conversation here. Thank you.
Thank you.